Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in. My name's Wade, and I'm here to talk about journalism and the role it has in society. In order to fully understand journalism's purpose in society, you have to look back on how it started and what it was originally intended to do. The Founding Fathers considered freedom of the press so important they established its rights in the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Journalism is referred to as the Fourth Estate, aiming to serve the public's best interest and act as a watchdog on those in power. Media has constantly changed through time, with technological advances such as the printing press drastically increasing the volume at which people get their news. During the Vietnam War, journalists were able to give the public a real first-hand experience of what was happening over there and really influenced how the public reacted to the war that we were in. The printing press was obviously not the last invention to take on the new media and journalism world. As we've learned in class, new media is completely changing how people view news and how they find their content. Since the internet, the way in which people are getting their news no longer are the traditional news networks such as CNN, ABC, Fox News, CBS. Social media sites have become major news outlets, specifically Facebook for the younger generations, where over half the population gets their news from. These are just a few of the diagrams that we went over in class. Media is no longer centralized and controlled by just a few corporations. It's now in the hands of everybody with a device that can distribute it through any of their social media channels. This can be done via blogging, podcasts, forums, vlogs. They're really endless now. This, of course, ties in with our class concept of participatory journalism.
I broke the domestic wiretapping story.
I have widgets.
I uncovered Walter Reed, corrupt mayors, and steroids in baseball.
I can aggregate to more eyeballs.
You don't pay for my work.
On the internet, information wants to be free.
I've been fighting corruption and wrongdoing 200 years before geeks like you even existed.
With enough bloggers and citizen journalists,
This next
I'll
video
be the
puts a
same.
humorous spin on the struggle between new media and old
To
media.
monetize and collect micropayments.
I need macro payments. I'm laying off good journalists here.
And have been for years, while trying to satisfy corporate's hunger for double-digit profits.
I ought to punch you in your tweeter.
I think you mean Twitter.
Whatever.
What?
Nothing.
Good, because I wanted
Huh?
to ask you if...
Got any money for me?
I'm
I'm
running a little low.
Do you think journalism is dead? Not at all. But what is journalism? And more so, what is investigative journalism? It seems many have forgotten what it means. I'll start by stating what investigative journalism is not. It's not about force-feeding the public stories, which are slanted, in favor of huge corporate interests and presenting them as facts. It's not about serving the interests of one political party over another. It's also not a popularity contest. Most importantly, true investigative journalism has nothing to do with talking points from the left or the right, especially when the end result is the same. As for what journalism is, let's start with the word investigative, which means specializing in uncovering and reporting hidden information. Journalism is also a grassroots endeavor, meaning by the people, for the people. And then what about an actual definition of the word journalism itself? It turns out it means the collection and editing of news for presentation through media. Notice I didn't say sensationalism or bias, I said news. I think journalism can be about even more. To me, it should be a profession based around integrity. At the end of the day, if adherence to moral and ethical principles is not part and parcel in how we receive our information, where does that leave us? I also contend that investigative journalism should be fearless. No question should be too tough to ask. No story too controversial. No subject matter out of bounds. Not only must we be fearless, though, when asking questions, but also when we uncover uncomfortable answers that shake and challenge our perception. Journalism should also be a guardian of liberty, in that a free people should have a free press. And finally, no constraints ever should be placed on a search for the truth. That is the definition, the soul of what investigative journalism should mean. And it's why I work so hard every day to restore what the founders called the Fourth Estate, the media acting as a watchdog, the grassroots fourth branch of government. So why do we need truth in media? Well, the very notion that we live in a time where this even needs to be asked is profound. If we don't have truth in media, I ask you this, what are we left with?
So now let's take a look at some of the new features you see on news outlets today on the internet. With the new news model that we have now, there are large problems with advertisements and news sites being fake. They rely on upworthy headlines to get people to click. Here is just one of the many examples you'll see today when surfing through the web.
Particularly in an age of social media where so many people are getting their information in sound bites and snippets off their phones. If we can't discriminate between serious arguments and propaganda, then we have problems.
This new model of crowdfunding journalism is funded by the public, for the public. They rely on the public upfront paying them to investigate certain stories. And they use engagement from the audience to dictate what they're going to investigate and how they should investigate it. The answer to that might be a real-world example of when crowdfunding journalism came in handy for the public good was during the Ferguson case, when all the traditional news outlets had left because of lack of funding. But people wanted to see the story develop after the first couple of days, and the independent journalists relied on the people to fund them so they could get that information and those shots that people so desperately wanted to see. As rapidly as things are changing in the news and journalism industry, one might ask, how do experts view these changes as positive or negative, and how do they think it's impacting them? This next video takes a look at social media specifically and its role in today's journalism.
Oh man, social media has changed journalism in a lot of ways, I think.
And I see it both in both
good and the bad.
We don't have a sort of broadcast publishing model anymore, which is lovely because it allows a direct connection.
I think that there is, for me, a lot of excitement about reaching a wider audience, because there are some people that are only coming to us in the digital space.
Facebook itself is having an outsized impact right now on the practice of journalism and the business of journalism. It's actually just like the reality of traffic flow on the internet now. If something doesn't succeed on Facebook, it does not succeed.
Twitter is important in terms of setting the agenda and the conversation, but Facebook is where everyone really is actually discussing and sharing that information.
I have always been a champion for old media flinging open its doors and allowing citizens to participate. And I got into public radio very early on because of this idea that it was supposed to belong to all of us.
To me, there's really not old and new media. There's just how quickly are you taking what's good from the past and kind of adding new ideas to it.
But I think what old media can learn from new media is the ability to move quicker, to bring more voices into the conversation, to really create an environment that you previously could only create when you were able to convene people together.
New media has professionalized, so it looks a lot more like old media. Old media has hired a bunch of bloggy types and webby types. So increasingly, it's just sort of all digital media, and the line between those two things is just disappearing.
That can be thrilling, it can be frightening. You know, the consumer has a lot more responsibility, and the consumer then needs to figure out who to trust.
To understand how big data is changing the news, we must take a look at the 4 V's. Volume represents how much data we are handling easily. The velocity is the speed of data flowing in and out, making it difficult to analyze. The variety is the range and type of data sources that are too great to assimilate. And lastly, veracity refers to the messiness or trustworthiness of the data. With such big forms of data in today's world, the accuracy and One of the cool things with journalism now is that evolving technologies allow us access to share certain experiences and world events that wouldn't otherwise been able to be shared. This next video will go into virtual reality journalism and the benefits it serves.
Virtual reality has this ability to take people to see everything around them. So in cases of natural disasters like our film that we made in Nepal, people can be standing in the streets of Kathmandu, have rubble all around them, and experience the scale and the scope of devastation as never before. Just recently when we shot Welcome to Aleppo in Syria, we're able to bring people right to the streets of Aleppo to see for themselves the crisis firsthand. Right now when we're shooting in VR, we use a lot of different cameras. Sometimes we use the jaunt camera, sometimes we use GoPros that are just stuck together on a 3D printed case. But the essential camera just looks like a ball with a lot of little cameras around it. The post-production, you've got to stitch all those different cameras together to get one image. Currently, we're using virtual reality to tell stories across the globe. We're shooting stories on climate change at the glaciers. We're shooting in Uganda, Congo, Haiti. We're about to start shooting in Iraq right now. All of these stories are opportunities to really transport people, have them have a full experience of what they could never have a chance to see. And if we can get people to hear a story about what's happening in Syria right now, or see the devastation that happened in Nepal and the ongoing effort that's going to rebuild, that's how we change the world.
New media is certainly fascinating and it's changing rapidly. However, it's important we differentiate the real news that educates and serves the public's best interest from the news that's only looking for clicks for ad revenue. Thanks for watching.